My name is Sophia Martinez, and the ICE agent shattered my jaw with his baton outside a 7-Eleven in El Paso, Texas. One swing, fast and brutal. Metal connecting with bone in a sound I felt more than heard. A wet crack that sent fragments of my mandible grinding against nerves. Blood filled my mouth instantly, flooding over my tongue, pouring down my chin onto the parking lot asphalt. I didn't scream, didn't cry out, couldn't. My jaw was broken in 3 places, and my mouth wouldn't close properly. I just stood there, swaying, blood streaming through my fingers as I tried to hold my face together, while Agent Dalton pulled his arm back for another swing. Stay down. He kicked my legs out from under me. I went down hard on my knees, fresh pain shooting through my kneecaps as they hit concrete. Hands behind your head. Do it now. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe through the blood. I raised my hands slowly, carefully, tasting copper and feeling bone fragments shifting in ways bone should never shift. My vision blurred, shock, pain, or both. He grabbed my hair, yanked my head back, shoved his face close to mine. You speak English? Comprende? You're being detained for questioning. Blood bubbled from my mouth. I couldn't answer even if I wanted to. My jaw wouldn't move, wouldn't close, just hung there, useless and screaming. Don't play stupid with me. He threw my head forward, and the motion sent new waves of agony through the shattered bones. You match the description. 30-something Hispanic female, long dark hair, leaving the store with merchandise. I'd bought a bottle of water. 1 bottle, paid for it, had the receipt in my pocket. But Agent Dalton had already decided I was guilty of something. Illegal presence, shoplifting, existing while Latina in a border town. He'd made up his mind before he ever swung that baton. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known because I was wearing running shorts and a tank top covered in sweat from my morning jog, was that the woman whose jaw he'd just shattered wasn't some undocumented worker he could brutalize without consequences. I was Commander, United States Navy, Executive Officer of the USS Michael Murphy, a destroyer currently docked in San Diego. I had 17 years of service, 3 combat deployments, and a Bronze Star for actions during a piracy interdiction off the coast of Somalia. And in exactly 90 seconds, his career would be over. But first, I had to survive long enough to make it happen. Dalton zip-tied my wrists behind my back, the plastic cutting into my skin. My hands were already going numb from the tight binding. Blood continued pouring from my mouth. I could feel it soaking into my sports bra, could taste it in my throat, making me gag. Got a runner at the 7-Eleven on Mesa, he spoke into his radio. Hispanic female, mid-30s, non-compliant, requesting backup for transport. Non-compliant. I hadn't said a word, hadn't moved except when he'd forced me down. But in Dalton's narrative, I was already guilty, already dangerous, already less than human. A small crowd had gathered outside the 7-Eleven entrance. Morning customers, early shift workers getting coffee, teenagers on their way to school. They stood frozen, watching a federal agent brutalize a woman in the parking lot while she bled onto the pavement. One man, older, wearing a construction vest, stepped forward. "Hey, that's excessive." Dalton's hand went to his pepper spray. "Back off. Federal enforcement operation. She's injured. She needs medical. She needs to comply with lawful orders. Anyone else want to interfere?" The crowd stayed back, but phones appeared. Multiple angles, multiple recordings. The 7-Eleven security cameras pointed directly at us. A Ring doorbell on the house across the street. Every second was being documented. Good. Let them record. Let them capture the moment a federal agent decided a broken jaw was an appropriate response to buying water while brown. Dalton grabbed my arm, hauled me to my feet. The motion made my head swim, made more blood fountain from my destroyed mouth. I stumbled, couldn't catch myself as my hands bound, started to fall. He caught me by the hair again, keeping me upright through sheer painful grip on my scalp. You're going to walk to that vehicle. You understand me? Walk, or I drag you." I tried to nod. Even that small motion sent lightning through my jaw. I took a step, then another, each one requiring focus through pain that wanted to pull me under. Blood dripped steadily, leaving a trail across the parking lot. The black SUV was unmarked. No government plates, no official designation, nothing to identify it as a federal vehicle. Just tinted windows and Dalton's aggression. In the back, now. He opened the door, pushed my head down, trying to force me in. But I resisted. Not fighting, just not helping. Making him work for it. Making every action he took visible to the camera still recording. "You want to do this the hard way?" He grabbed my zip-tied wrists, twisted them up between my shoulder blades in a pain compliance hold. Something in my shoulder popped. Fresh agony joined the symphony already screaming from my body. I made a sound then, not words, just a strangled gasp that bubbled through blood. Yeah, that's what I thought. He shoved me into the vehicle, my head hitting the doorframe. Stars exploded across my vision. "Sit there and shut up." He slammed the door. Through the tinted window, I could see him talking on his radio, gesturing, playing the part of the competent federal agent handling a dangerous situation, not the violent thug who'd assaulted an unarmed woman for buying water. I sat in the back seat, hands still bound, jaw shattered, blood soaking my shirt, and I waited. Waited for backup to arrive. Waited for him to make his next mistake. Waited for the exact right moment to destroy everything he thought he'd built. 3 minutes passed, then 5. My vision kept fading at the edges, shock trying to pull me down. I fought it, focused on breathing through my nose, on staying conscious, on memorizing every detail for the statement I'd give later. A second vehicle pulled up, another unmarked SUV. 2 more agents got out, both male, both carrying the same aggressive swagger. They talked to Dalton, glanced at me through the window, talked some more. One of them laughed. They were enjoying this, taking down someone they assumed was powerless, putting another undocumented person in the system, adding another number to their quota. Just another Tuesday morning in El Paso. The second vehicle left. Dalton returned, got in the driver's seat, started the engine. He didn't look at me, didn't check if I was breathing, didn't care that I was bleeding onto his back seat. Just put the vehicle in gear and started driving. We'd gone maybe 2 blocks when the El Paso PD cruiser lit up behind us, sirens blaring. Dalton glanced in the rearview mirror. The cruiser stayed on us, lights flashing, clearly signaling a traffic stop. Dalton pulled over, confusion crossing his face. He got out, met the officer halfway, a female sergeant with 20 years of road-worn experience visible in her posture. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her body language shift from professional to alarmed. She looked past Dalton to the SUV, to me visible in the back seat, blood-soaked and bound. Her hand went to her radio. Seconds later, more police arrived. A supervisor's car, an ambulance, a lieutenant who took one look at me and started barking orders that I couldn't quite hear through the blood rushing in my ears. The back door opened. A paramedic, young guy with kind eyes, crouched down. "Ma'am, I'm going to help you. Can you hear me?" I nodded fractionally. "Can you tell me your name?" I tried to speak. Nothing came out but bloody gurgling. My jaw wouldn't work, wouldn't form words, wouldn't do anything but hurt. "That's okay. Don't try to talk. We're going to get you out of these restraints and to a hospital." He pulled out medical shears, cut the zip ties. Blood flow returned to my hands in painful tingles. Behind him, I could see Dalton arguing with the police sergeant. Her voice carried now, sharp and clear. "Called in an assault with a weapon. Witnesses say you struck an unarmed woman with a baton. That's not immigration enforcement. That's felony assault." She matched a description. Description of what? A Hispanic woman in El Paso? That's not probable cause. That's profiling. The sergeant gestured to me. "She's injured, seriously injured. You're going to have to explain how that was necessary force." The paramedic stabilized my jaw with careful hands, started an IV, gave me something for the pain that took the edge off, but didn't stop the screaming. They loaded me onto a gurney, wheeled me toward the ambulance. As we passed Dalton, the police sergeant stepped in his path. "Keys, vehicle, now. This is a crime scene. You don't have authority over federal operations. I have authority over felony assault that occurred in my jurisdiction." She held out her hand. "Keys." Another officer was photographing the blood trail in the 7-Eleven parking lot. Another was collecting witness statements. The construction worker who tried to intervene was showing his phone video to a detective. At the hospital, they x-rayed my jaw, confirmed what I already knew. 3 fractures, 1 displacement, surgical intervention required immediately. They prepped me for emergency surgery, but before the anesthesia took me under, I managed to get the surgeon's attention. I reached for my running belt, still somehow clipped around my waist despite everything, and pulled out my military ID with shaking hands, placed it in the surgeon's palm. His eyes went wide. He looked at the ID, at me, at the ID again. Then he handed it to the nurse. "Contact the Navy, now, and get me hospital administration. We have a Navy commander with assault injuries, and this needs to be elevated immediately." The anesthesia pulled me down before I could see his face again, but I heard him giving orders in the rapid-fire way surgeons do when something important is happening. The last thing I remembered was someone saying, "Jesus Christ, ICE assaulted a Navy officer," and then everything went black. I woke up 6 hours later with my jaw wired shut, my face swollen beyond recognition, and a captain from Navy Judge Advocate General's office sitting in a chair beside my hospital bed. "Commander Martinez," she stood when my eyes opened. "I'm Captain Rebecca Walsh, JAG. Don't try to talk. I know you can't. I'm here because what happened to you this morning is being treated as an assault on a military officer. Do you understand?" I nodded carefully. "Do you consent to having me review the case details and pursue full legal action?" I nodded again, more emphatically. She smiled grimly. "Good, because Agent Dalton just made the worst mistake of his life." She pulled out a tablet, showed me a video. "This is from the 7-Eleven security camera. It's already been provided to police, FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General." The video showed everything. Me walking out of the store with a water bottle, Dalton approaching aggressively, me turning, showing empty hands, him swinging the baton without warning, my jaw shattering, me collapsing, him forcing me down, zip-tying me, throwing me into the vehicle. Clear, undeniable, devastating. "There are 4 other videos from witnesses," Walsh continued, "all showing the same thing. Unprovoked assault with a weapon on an unarmed woman. No identification, no probable cause articulated, no reasonable suspicion, just violence." She put the tablet away. "Agent Dalton is in federal custody. He's been charged with assault with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment, civil rights violations, and about 6 other felonies. ICE has suspended him, and this is just the beginning." I wanted to smile, couldn't, with my jaw wired, settled for closing my eyes in satisfaction. "The media already has the story," Walsh continued. "Navy commander assaulted by ICE agent in El Paso. It's national news. Your ship commander is flying in tonight. The base commander from Coronado called personally. And ma'am," she leaned closer. Over the next week, the story exploded. Video of Dalton shattering my jaw played on every news channel. The Navy released a statement condemning the assault. ICE tried to distance themselves, calling Dalton a rogue agent. The El Paso Police Department held a press conference showing the evidence. And I lay in a hospital bed with my jaw wired shut, unable to eat solid food, speaking through a notebook, while the man who'd done this to me watched his entire life disintegrate on national television. Dalton tried to defend himself, claimed I'd matched a description of the suspect. When asked what description, he said, Hispanic female with dark hair. When pressed for more details, he had none. No height, no weight, no clothing description beyond dark-colored. He'd profiled me based on race alone, then tried to justify the violence after the fact. His lawyer argued he'd felt threatened. The videos showed I'd never made a threatening move, just stood there with a water bottle while he approached swinging. ICE released his personnel file. This was his 4th excessive force complaint in 2 years. He'd been suspended twice before, transferred to El Paso as a fresh start. The pattern was clear. This was who he'd always been. I was just the first victim with enough rank to force accountability. When I was finally released from the hospital 2 weeks later, my jaw still wired shut and facing months of recovery, the Navy held a press conference. I sat in my dress uniform, unable to speak, while my ship commander read a statement on my behalf. Commander Martinez was jogging in her neighborhood, buying water at a convenience store when she was profiled and assaulted by a federal agent who assumed her ethnicity made her a criminal. She has 17 years of service to this country. She has defended American interests around the world. And she was brutalized while buying water because her last name is Martinez. The room full of reporters was silent. We're here because this cannot stand. Because Commander Martinez's rank and service should never have been required for her to be treated with basic human dignity. But since they were required, we're making damn sure everyone knows exactly who Agent Dalton assaulted. They showed photos. Me in uniform at my change of command ceremony. Me on the deck of the USS Michael Murphy. Me receiving my Bronze Star. Me as a junior officer, mid-career officer, senior officer. 17 years of service documented against one moment of violence from a man who decided my skin color was probable cause. Dalton was convicted 3 months later. Federal judge threw the book at him. 5 years in prison. No federal pension, permanent prohibition from law enforcement. His lawyer tried to appeal. It was denied within weeks. I attended the sentencing with my jaw finally unwired, still healing. Permanent nerve damage affecting my speech. I didn't give a victim statement. Didn't need to. The videos spoke for themselves. But as they led him away, he looked at me and I saw it. Not remorse, not understanding, just bitter resentment that he'd been held accountable for once in his life. I wrote a letter to the 7-Eleven employee who'd called 911. Found out her name was Maria, that she'd been terrified to call police because of her own immigration status. But she'd done it anyway because watching someone be brutalized was worse than her fear. Thank you for being brave, I wrote. Thank you for making that call even when it scared you. You saved my life that day. She wrote back, you saved mine too, because now I know that maybe the system works sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. That's what I hold on to. Not the violence, not the pain, not the months of recovery and surgeries to rebuild what Dalton destroyed, but the fact that 90 seconds after he shattered my jaw, the system started to work. Witnesses called. Police responded. Evidence was collected. Justice, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely, was served. My name is Commander Sofia Martinez. I'm in the United States Navy with 17 years of service, and I learned that authority without accountability is just violence with a badge, until someone makes them answer for it. Dalton learned that in seconds, from the moment that police cruiser lit him up until the moment my military ID landed in the surgeon's hands. His career was ending in real time. He just didn't know it yet, but I did. Even through the shock and pain, even with my jaw shattered and blood pouring down my chin, I knew that every second was being documented, every action recorded, every witness watching him destroy himself. Because that's what bullies do when they finally hit someone who can hit back with something stronger than fists. They hit legal accountability. They hit military justice. They hit the full weight of a system that might move slowly, but moves completely when a federal agent shatters a Navy commander's jaw for buying water. 90 seconds. That's all it took for the call to go out, for police to respond, for the house of cards Dalton had built on violence and profiling to start collapsing. And I made sure every second counted, even the ones where I was bleeding on the ground, because those seconds became evidence, became testimony, became the irrefutable proof that ended his career and sent him to prison. They'll always make assumptions about names and faces. They'll always think violence is justified when nobody's watching. They'll always believe power means they're untouchable, right up until they shatter the wrong jaw, and then everything they thought protected them becomes the rope they hang themselves with. My jaw healed crooked, permanent reminder of what happened. But Dalton's career is gone. His freedom is gone. His badge is gone. And 5 years in federal prison is a long time to think about the 90 seconds that destroyed everything he built on brutality. I ruined his career in seconds. He just didn't realize it until the handcuffs were on him instead of me.